Hey guys, so I wanted to just come on real quick and explain the problems that I said that I was going to. Sorry that I wasn't able to do the Google Meet, but I still wanted to go through 36 through 40 and then 135 on the next one. So the first question asks you, which one of these shows a functioning relationship between the values of x and y? So the first thing that should come to your mind when you're looking at graphs is the vertical line test. So we want to know which one of these graphs passes the vertical line test. And the vertical line test means that when you draw vertical lines, it can only hit your graph one time, like each vertical line. So if you look at C, it's hitting your graph like all over in this general area. So that does not pass the vertical line test. This fails the vertical line test. B definitely fails the vertical line test because if you draw a vertical line over the one you have, it's hitting your graph everywhere. So the only one that passes the vertical line test is A. So A would be your answer for 36. The next one, Landon welded 3 pieces of metal together to form a triangle with side lengths that measure 9 and 17. And 8. So you've got 8 and 9, which would have to be your legs because those are the smaller two, and then 17. And I ask you, did he create a right triangle? So what you want to do is you're going to draw your triangle. Again, I know 8 and 9 are the legs because those are the smaller sides. And you're just trying to prove, okay, does 8 squared plus 9 squared, does that equal 17 squared? Well, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81. When we add those together, we get 145. And 17 squared is 289. And those values are not equal to each other. So that is not a right triangle. So the answer would be C. No, the sum of the squares of the two shorter sides does not equal the square of the longest side. Number 38. It tells you that you have a transformation on the coordinate plane, and it wants to know which one of these represents the transformation that occurred. So you started out with x and y, and if you look, you just added 4 to your x value and 4 to your y value. And when you look at your rules, the only thing that's going to have you adding or subtracting from your x and y values would be a translation. And the x-axis is this way, so that's determining left or right. And then the y-axis is going up and down. So this would just mean you're going right 4 and then up 4. And that would be a translation. So we're going to be choosing B. Number 39, it tells you that you have parallel lines A and B, and they're cut by the transversal T. And it asks you for the measurement of X. So this is called same side interior. And same side interior angles, they are going to add up to 180. So you're going to add these together and set it equal to 180. And when I do that, 5 and 2 make 7x, and then negative 40 plus a positive 10 would give me negative 30. And I'm going to set that equal to 180. You're going to solve for x, so you're going to do inverse operations. You're going to add 30 first. That leaves you with 7x equals 210. Divide both sides by 7, and you get x is 30. So I'm going to choose D. Number 40, it talks about Raquel charging customers a one-time fee, and the one-time fee would be your y-intercept because that's your initial cost. And then you're also going to have to get a fee for a daily rate. So that's your constant rate of change. Depending upon the number of days is going to be your total charge. So you have an initial amount and then what you are going to have to pay on top of that per day. So I know my y-intercept is 20. So the fee has to be 20. And looking at that information, that's going to eliminate our A. And then your daily rate is your slope. So I'm going to pick another pretty point. I see one here. And when I do my rise over run, I rise 50 and run 2. And 50 over 2 when divided is going to give you 25. So that's going to be $25 per day. And that would be your daily rate. So the initial fee of 20, daily rate of 25. So I'm going to choose C. Okay. Now I'm actually on the second assessment. So it should say assessment B. Definitely want to go over one because it's talking about volume of a cylinder, and we went through this on a Google Meet before, but I just want to make sure you remember the formula for volume of a cylinder. It is pi times your radius squared times the height of the whole thing. We typically round pi to be 3.14, and it even says that in the information directions they give you. You use 3.14 for pi when necessary. So I'm going to use 3.14. Your radius, now you have to be really careful about this because this is actually your diameter. So if you divide your diameter by 2, you get the radius, which is 3.5, and that's the value that the formula calls for. So I'm going to use 3.5. And then the height of the whole thing is 10. Make sure that you read into this, though, because it's telling me that I've got this space, but 30% of the space inside is filled with air, and that's what it's asking me about. So when I actually solve this, I'm going to be multiplying it by 30%, which would be 0.30 or 0.3. And when you do that, because it only wants 30%, you get A. Number 2, it says, of the equations listed, which one is linear? Linear is when your exponent is 1. So the exponent here is an imaginary 1. The exponent here is 2. And the exponent here, since it's on the bottom, is the -1. So the only one that's linear would be equation 1. So I'm going to choose B. Number 3, parallel lines A and B are cut by the transversal, and it asks you to use their relationship to find the value of x. These are in the exact same position. They're both on the top left, and we call this corresponding angles. Corresponding angles are in the same position like I just said, and they're also equal to each other. So I can set up an equation where I have 6x plus 1 equal to 10x minus 43. And then just solve it like normal. You could subtract 6x. That's going to go away. And then you would add 43 on both sides. That cancels out. So we would have 44 is equal to 4x. And when you divide both sides by the 4 to get x isolated, x is going to be equal to 11, and that matches A. All right, number 4. We've done one similar to this. If your area is 200 and it says which one represents the side length. So if your area, and it's talking about a square, so the area of the square is 200, and you want to know the side length of the fence, you would have to take the square root of 200, and again, that's what times what equals 200. And you want to get as close to possible to get to that 200. These have to be the same number. And 200 is not a perfect square, so we're going to be doing estimating here. I know that one that would be very close is 14 squared, because 14 times 14 is 196. So it's going to be between 14 and 15, and then 15 squared is 225. So it's definitely going to be closer to 14. So when you look at your number line, you're looking for a decimal that's in between 14 and 15, but closer to 14, and that's going to be B. So I'm going to choose B because that is the one that would best represent the side of the fence. And last but not least, I've got a graph, and it's showing the distance that an animal has walked. Well, I need to figure out which one of these situations could also have the same slope as the one that I have presented. So this is a pretty point at the origin, and this is a pretty point. I'm going to do rise over run. That's going to give me 10 over 3. So I'm looking for something when I set up my rate is also going to give me 10 over 3. The first one says Miss Hester's grade, she grades 3 papers every 10 minutes. Now this is close, but these are actually the reciprocal of each other, so 10 has to be on top. The next one says Casey's paying 20 cents per piece of gum at the candy store. So that is going to be 2/10, again, not 10/3. And then Mark rides in a taxi that charges $1 every 3 miles, so 1/3. And then lastly, Juliet pays $20 for every 6 pens she purchases. So $20 per 6 pens. When simplified, if you divide the top and bottom by 2, they make equivalent slopes or rate of change. So D matches the graph that you have. For the week, don't forget to do your goal 2 and your quiz is. I will do another Google Meet on Tuesday at 12 o'clock. Please join that. Tomorrow, try to get 6 through 16 done on this packet. And then don't forget, if you would like a hard copy of the packet, a hard copy of the goal sheets, you can pick those up anytime after 4 p.m. tomorrow, and that's going to be behind the cafeteria just like before. So tomorrow, please try to get 6 through 16 done. And then make sure you've gotten goal 2 done and your quiz is. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me. Have a great weekend.